In the showroom's midnight glow, Darius Monroe stands beside a midnight blue luxury sedan, a lone figure of quiet resolve against a verdict he's not ready to swallow. "You don't belong anywhere near cars worth more than your entire life," Richard Lawson spits, and the insult cuts through the glare like a knife, lighting a fuse that could burn away the man he used to be and forge the one he must become. The showroom hums with soft lighting, the kind of polish that makes wealth look inevitable. Everything gleams, the chrome, the leather, the clockwork efficiency of a world that moves only in increments and guarantees. Darius Monroe stands at the edge of that world, not a buyer, not a spectator, but a man choosing where he belongs in a place that never bothered to ask. The contrast is stark, affluence that feels preordained, and destitution that feels earned, or at least survived. Darius's face is calm, eyes steady, as the midnight blue sedan lights his reflection in the glass. He's learned to measure time by decisions, not dollars, and tonight's decision has nothing to do with how much the car costs. It's about whether he can claim a space on a floor that has never written his name. Richard Lawson's voice shatters the moment. "You don't belong anywhere near cars worth more than your entire life." The words land with the precision of a verdict, and for a heartbeat, the showroom seems to tilt. But the insult doesn't break Darius, it crystallizes his resolve. He's spent years turning scarcity into strategy, and tonight he's here to test whether a single rejection can become a doorway, or a doorway into a reckoning that could reshape everything he's ever wanted. The murmur of the crowd barely settled when the glass doors opened again. A woman in a charcoal suit stepped through, her heels clicking against the marble with deliberate precision. She carried a leather briefcase embossed with corporate insignia, and her expression was unreadable behind wire-rimmed glasses. Richard turned, ready to dismiss another interruption, but something about her posture made him pause. "Richard Lawson." Her voice was measured, professional, and carried the weight of authority that couldn't be faked. "Yes, and you are." She produced credentials from her jacket pocket, laminated, holographic, impossible to dismiss. "Elena Foster, Corporate Compliance Division. I'm here for an unscheduled behavioral audit." The words landed like a gavel. "What I just witnessed from the entrance qualifies as a triggering event under Section 4.2 of your operational charter." Richard's confidence didn't waver. He straightened his maroon blazer, already formulating his defense. "Ma'am, I appreciate corporate oversight, but what you saw was standard security protocol. I was protecting our clientele and our inventory from." "Walk me through your customer screening process, Mr. Lawson." Elena's interruption was surgical. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The showroom went silent. The ambient music seemed to fade. Sales associates who moments ago had been laughing now found sudden interest in their tablets and clipboards. A few customers shifted uncomfortably, phones still in hand but no longer recording. Richard glanced around, registering the change in atmosphere but misreading its cause. "We assess potential customers based on their likelihood to make a purchase. Appearance, demeanor, ability to." "Ability to what, Mr. Lawson?" "To afford our vehicles." He said it without shame, as if stating an obvious truth. Elena opened her briefcase and withdrew a leather-bound notepad. She clicked her pen once. "Define your assessment criteria in measurable terms, please. What specific indicators did you use to determine that individual's purchasing power?" Richard opened his mouth, then closed it. The staff exchanged nervous glances. Because there was no system. There was only assumption. Richard recovered quickly, his voice taking on an edge of indignation. "Ms. Foster, with all due respect, the man was clearly homeless. Torn clothing, no vehicle in the lot registered to him, loitering by our premium inventory. I made a judgment call based on years of experience in luxury retail. My job is to maintain an atmosphere of excellence for legitimate customers." He strode to the reception desk and retrieved a laminated placard, the company's mission statement. He held it up like evidence. "Right here. Prestige Elite Motors is committed to maintaining an atmosphere of excellence through exceptional service and uncompromising standards. I was upholding our brand. Elena's pen moved across the page without pause. She didn't look up. You used the word clearly. Define it. Excuse me. You said he was clearly homeless. What made it clear? Richard's jaw tightened. His clothes were ripped. He looked like he'd been sleeping rough. He didn't belong in a place like this. Did he threaten anyone? No, but... Did he damage property? He didn't need to. His presence alone was. Was what, Mr. Lawson? Now Elena looked up, and her gaze was clinical. Complete the sentence. The silence stretched. Richard's hand clenched around the mission statement. His presence was inappropriate for our clientele. People pay premium prices for a premium experience. That includes the environment. Elena made another note. So you removed him to protect an experience, not to prevent harm. I was protecting customers and inventory from potential. Define atmosphere of excellence, in measurable terms. Elena's voice remained flat, but the question hit like a cross-examination. Give me 3 quantifiable metrics. Richard stared. His mouth opened. No words came. Because excellence had always been a feeling, a judgment, a gatekeeping mechanism dressed in corporate language. He couldn't measure what he'd never truly defined. Elena closed her notepad. I need to see your security footage. All of it. From the moment that individual entered until the moment he exited. The large display screen mounted above the reception desk flickered to life. Elena stood beside it with a remote control, her expression unchanged. The footage began at 2:47 p.m., timestamp visible in the corner. The glass doors opened. Darius Monroe entered, hands in the pockets of his gray hoodie, moving with unhurried calm. Here, Richard said, pointing as if the evidence vindicated him. You can see he doesn't belong. Elena pressed pause. What I see is a person walking through a door. Continue. The footage resumed. Darius approached the midnight blue sedan, his hand reaching out to touch the hood. His fingers traced the curve with what could only be described as familiarity, even reverence. There. Richard gestured emphatically. Touching the merchandise without permission. That's when I intervened. Elena paused again. On screen, Darius's hand rested gently on the car's surface. No pressure. No aggression. She zoomed in digitally. His fingertips are making contact. Like this? She demonstrated on the desk, her own hand mimicking the gesture. Or like this? She pressed down firmly. The point is observable behavior, Mr. Lawson. Elena resumed playback. Now Richard appeared on screen, striding forward, finger jabbing. His voice, captured clearly by the showroom's audio system, boomed through the speakers. This isn't a homeless shelter. Get out before I call the police. Several customers in the present showroom winced. One woman looked away. They were watching themselves watch, and the reflection was uncomfortable. Elena paused on Darius's face. The expression was neither hostile nor afraid. Just observant. Cataloging. Does he appear agitated? She asked. Does he appear agitated? Richard said nothing. The footage continued. Darius spoke, I'm just looking. His voice was quiet, measured. Richard's response was not, you're just leaving. The volume difference was stark. Elena fast-forwarded to the moment security approached. Darius raised his hands slightly, palms visible, and walked toward the exit without resistance. He never raised his voice. Never made a threatening gesture. Never touched anything except that one car. Frame by frame, Richard's narrative disintegrated. The crowd watching now, the same people who had filmed and laughed, stood in growing discomfort. What they'd witnessed wasn't a justified removal. It was public humiliation based on appearance alone. Elena turned off the screen. Your report will reflect what the footage shows. Nothing more. Nothing less. Elena returned to her briefcase and withdrew a bound document, Richard Lawson's name printed across the cover. She opened it to a page marked with a yellow tab and read aloud, her voice carrying through the silent showroom. Employment Agreement, Section 3, Subsection B. All persons entering dealership premises shall be treated with dignity and respect regardless of appearance, perceived economic status, or attire. Staff members are prohibited from discriminating against any individual based on clothing, accessories, or aesthetic presentation. She looked up. You signed this document on your first day. Do you recall? Richard's face had gone rigid. I do. But workplace safety supersedes. Did you feel unsafe, Mr. Lawson? The question hung in the air like a blade. Richard hesitated, and in that hesitation, the truth became obvious. He hadn't felt unsafe. He'd felt superior. He'd felt entitled to decide who deserved access and who didn't. I felt responsible, he said finally, but the words lacked conviction. That's not what I asked. Elena's pen was poised above her notepad. At any point during your interaction with that individual, did you feel your physical safety was at risk? Yes or no? No, but... Did you feel any customer's safety was at risk? I felt the potential for. Yes or no, Mr. Lawson? No. The word came out strained. Elena made a note. So your removal of the individual was not based on safety concerns, but on your personal assessment of whether he belonged in this establishment based on his clothing. Richard's hands clenched at his sides. This is a luxury dealership. We have standards. You have policies. Elena closed the contract. And you violated them. In front of witnesses. While being recorded. She gestured to the customers still holding their phones. This isn't a debate about standards. It's documentation of a policy breach. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ambient showroom music seemed to have stopped. Richard's confidence, so solid moments before, had begun to crack. And Elena wasn't finished yet. Elena walked past Richard without another word, her heels clicking purposefully across the marble floor. She stopped at the reception area where a gallery of framed photographs lined the wall, smiling salespeople shaking hands with satisfied customers, gleaming vehicles beneath showroom lights, and at the center, larger than the rest, a founding ceremony. She lifted the frame from its hook. The photograph showed a ribbon cutting from 8 years ago. A younger man in a tailored navy suit stood holding oversized scissors, surrounded by city officials and investors. The dealership's logo was visible on a banner behind him, and his smile was genuine, proud. Elena carried the photograph back to where Richard stood, then positioned herself beside the display screen. With her remote, she pulled up the security footage again and froze it on a clear frame of Darius Monroe standing calmly in his gray hoodie. She held the founding photograph next to the screen. Side by side. Same facial structure. Same eyes. Same man. 8 years older. Dressed differently. But unmistakable. Do you recognize this person, Mr. Lawson? The color drained from Richard's face as his eyes moved between the two images. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Around him, staff members leaned closer, squinting at the comparison. Customers craned their necks. One sales associate whispered, "Oh my God." Another covered her mouth. Richard's hand reached out as if to steady himself against the desk, but he didn't quite touch it. His carefully constructed confidence collapsed in real time. That's not, he couldn't be. The founding ceremony. September 2017. Elena's voice remained clinical, factual. Darius Monroe, founder and original investor. Present at the ribbon cutting. Present today. Do you see the resemblance, Mr. Lawson, or do you need me to request facial recognition analysis? Richard's throat worked. His maroon blazer suddenly seemed too tight. I didn't know. You didn't ask. Elena set the photograph on the desk between them. You made an assessment based solely on clothing. And now we're documenting the consequences of that assessment. The photograph sat there like an accusation, the smiling founder in his suit staring up at the frozen image of himself being escorted toward the door. Elena's briefcase opened again with a soft click. This time, she withdrew a stack of official documents, each page bearing corporate seals and notarized signatures. She spread them across the reception desk with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Business Registration Certificate, filed September 12, 2017, State of California. She tapped the first document. Darius Monroe, listed as founder and chief executive officer. Richard stared at the document as if it might vanish if he looked away. Elena placed a second document beside the first. Shareholder Agreement, most recent amendment dated January 2025. Darius Monroe holds 58% controlling interest. Prestige Elite Motors, LLC. The numbers seemed to glow on the page. 58%. Majority shareholder. Richard's hands began to tremble. Board meeting minutes, December 15, 2024. Elena's finger traced down a printed list. Agenda Item 7, Approval of New Sales Manager Hire. Motion carried unanimously. Signature of approval. She turned the page toward Richard. Right there. D. Monroe. Richard's signature sat just below it. The date was 3 months ago, his first day. Darius Monroe had personally approved his hiring. Around them, the showroom had become a gallery of frozen faces. Staff members stood motionless. Customers had lowered their phones entirely now, the spectacle transforming from entertainment into something far more sobering. Elena continued, her voice never rising, never falling. Quarterly financial reports show Mr. Monroe's personal capital investment funds 70% of operational costs, including. She paused deliberately. Payroll. The implication landed like a physical blow. Richard's salary, every paycheck he'd deposited, every commission he'd earned, came from the man he'd just humiliated and ejected from the building. A staff member made a small, choked sound. Another turned away. Elena gathered the documents and slid them across the desk. Read them yourself, Mr. Lawson. Every word. Every signature. Then explain to me why the owner of this dealership was treated like a trespasser in his own establishment. Richard's hands shook as he reached for the papers. The corporate seals were real. The signatures were real. The reality settling over him was inescapable and devastating. Elena produced a tablet from her briefcase, her fingers moving across the screen with practiced precision. Your dealership employs a biometric access system for secure entry and monitoring. All staff, contractors, and ownership have unique credentials logged in the central database. She turned the tablet toward Richard. On the screen, a security log displayed in neat columns, timestamps, names, access levels, entry points. Today, January 6, 2026. 2:47 p.m. Elena's finger highlighted a specific entry. Front entrance, biometric scan accepted. Name, Darius Monroe. Access level, proprietor override, all access. Status, authorized. Richard stared at the screen. The log was indisputable, official, time-stamped, digitally certified. This system, Elena continued, flags unauthorized entries immediately. Mr. Monroe's entry triggered no alarms. No security protocols. Because he has owner-level clearance that supersedes every other credential in this building, including yours. She swiped to another screen showing Richard's own access log. Your credentials, Manager Level 3. Access to sales floor, inventory, and customer databases. No override capabilities. You have authority here, Mr. Lawson, but it's delegated authority. His authority is foundational. Richard's jaw clenched. He didn't show identification. He didn't announce himself. He used his biometric access. Elena's voice remained level. The system identified him the moment he walked through the door. You have a terminal at your desk that displays entry logs in real time. Did you check it? The answer was obvious in Richard's silence. You saw clothing, Elena said, each word precise and damning. And you made a decision. Not based on data. Not based on identification. Not based on behavior. You saw torn denim and a hoodie and decided that person couldn't possibly have legitimate business here. She turned the tablet toward the watching crowd. The log entry was visible to everyone now: Darius Monroe, owner access, authorized. A customer near the back whispered, Jesus Christ. Another shook his head slowly, the weight of complicity settling on everyone who'd filmed, who'd laughed, who'd stood by. Elena powered off the tablet. The system doesn't discriminate, Mr. Lawson. It authenticates credentials regardless of how someone is dressed. Perhaps you should have trusted it more than your assumptions. The glass doors opened once more, and Darius Monroe stepped back inside. But this time, the atmosphere was different. The laughter was gone. The phones were lowered. The crowd that had mocked him now stood in various states of discomfort and dawning shame. Darius moved through the showroom with the same calm deliberation as before, but now every eye followed him with recognition. He walked past Richard without looking at him, past Elena with a small nod of acknowledgement, and positioned himself near the midnight blue sedan he'd touched earlier. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried across the silent space. I built this business 8 years ago on a principle that luxury should elevate people, not exclude them. I wanted to create a place where quality mattered more than pretense, where service was a value, not a performance. He looked at the crowd, making eye contact with customers who'd recorded him, staff who'd watched, salespeople who'd done nothing. I dressed like this today because I wanted to see if we still believed that. If our values were real or just words on a wall. His gaze finally settled on Richard. Mr. Lawson gave me my answer. Richard stood frozen, his maroon blazer now looking less like authority and more like costume. You didn't fail a test, Darius continued. You revealed a truth. That somewhere along the way, we started measuring people by their appearance instead of their dignity. We started gatekeeping access to luxury based on assumptions. He paused. And now we respond to that truth. The silence was absolute. Even Elena had stopped taking notes. Respect isn't conditional, Darius said. It's not something we grant to people who look wealthy enough to deserve it. It's foundational. And if we've forgotten that here, then we've lost something essential. He turned to Elena. Continue the audit. Every policy. Every procedure. I want to know how deep this goes. Then he looked at Richard one final time. You're suspended, effective immediately. Pending review. 2 security officers appeared at the entrance. The confrontation had come full circle, but this time, the person being escorted out wore a maroon blazer. Security officers approached Richard with professional detachment, no aggression in their movements but absolute authority in their posture. One held a tablet displaying termination protocols. The other simply waited, hands clasped. Mr. Lawson, you'll need to surrender your access credentials, Elena said, her tone administrative now rather than investigative. Richard's hands fumbled with the lanyard around his neck, the ID badge that moments ago had represented power. He pulled it off and placed it on the desk. The magnetic strip that had granted him entry to offices, databases, and executive areas was now deactivated with a single keystroke from Elena's tablet. Personal items from your office will be inventoried and sent to you within 48 hours, she continued. Your final paycheck will be processed according to standard termination procedures. Severance eligibility will be determined after the full compliance review is complete. Richard nodded mutely. His earlier confidence had been completely stripped away, replaced by the hollow-eyed realization of a man whose career had just imploded publicly. As security guided him toward the exit, several staff members looked away. Others watched with expressions that mixed sympathy and relief that they hadn't been the one making those decisions, that their own subtle biases hadn't been spotlighted this brutally. Elena turned to the remaining staff and customers. Effective immediately, Prestige Elite Motors will undergo a company-wide policy review. Every employee will complete mandatory dignity and inclusion training within 2 weeks. No exceptions. Darius stepped forward, his gray hoodie still torn, his sneakers still scuffed. And we're implementing a new protocol, he said. Every person who walks through these doors is a guest. Period. Not a potential customer to be screened. Not a demographic to be assessed. A guest. One of the customers who'd filmed the original confrontation approached hesitantly. Mr. Monroe, I'm sorry. I should have said something. Another followed. I recorded it. I thought it was. I'm sorry. Darius accepted their apologies with quiet grace, but his expression remained serious. The question isn't whether you apologize. It's whether you'll act differently next time. The dealership reopened, not under new management, but under renewed principles. Respect is not conditional. It is foundational.